So as you can see here, the title of the presentation that I will deliver on this afternoon is I Too Am America, the Black Experience and the Breaking of Chains. Perhaps you've heard the poem by Langston Hughes where he does say, I too am America. So I am a researcher. And in being a researcher, I try and take time to humble myself a lot. Because if you really want to understand the experience of a person, then you probably don't need to assume that you already know what their experience is. And so I want you to listen to this presentation first to be informed, and secondly, to understand. I want you to listen to this to be informed rather than to understand. Because the fact is, human nature suggests that when humans don't understand a thing, many times they become defensive. I want you to think about a man and a woman in a relationship and they get into an argument. The man doesn't understand the woman doesn't understand the man, and before you know it, the conversation leads to a defensive type thing. I just don't understand you. Well, the fact is, I'm a woman and you're a man, so you'll never really understand me because you don't know what it is to be a woman. And the man is thinking, well, you're not going to really understand me because I'm a man and you're a woman. You don't understand what it is to be a man. So conflict happens many times because we're so busy trying to understand that we miss being informed. So this presentation is an attempt to give us information in order to remove psychological chains that we may not even know are there. And so in research fashion, I conducted a research study, if you will. And so I am more of a qualitative researcher, which means that I'm interested in obtaining the lived experience of my research participants. So I took a phenomenological approach, which simply means that I wanted to ask questions to find out what is the Black experience. You see, because as a researcher, perhaps I could say, well, I've already earned a PhD, so I have credibility. Okay, check. I could possibly say, well, I have credibility because I'm Black. Okay, well, okay, check. But again, what is the Black experience? If you are a researcher, the first thing you do is ask the question to the people from whom you wish to obtain the information from. You don't go into this atmosphere with preconceived notions. You do, but you try to separate yourself from, so that you can collect data, right? And so I asked a few persons, both male and female, who were Black. Now I'm going to use the word Black, I'm going to use African American, I'm going to use Negro, I'm going to use color. All of that just simply means that I'm talking about people of African descent. This means that their ancestors came from Africa, okay? So when I say Black, it encompasses all of those terms, okay? So I asked a few Black persons, what does the Black experience mean to you? A 14-year-old male said, the Black experience means to me simply that I'm afraid to be confronted by a white policeman. I walk daily being scared of being shot. Being Black is life with less privileges. I'm proud of my culture at times, but at times being Black is terrifying. I'm only 14 and I'm scared to walk in a hoodie and just being around some white people. But with all these factors, I enjoy being Black, but it can be rough. Overall, being Black is cool. So then I asked a 56-year-old Black woman, what is the Black experience? She reported, not treated fairly because of the color of my skin. I suffered in jobs, professionally, and I suffered emotionally. Religion helped me. I learned God blesses even when you're mistreated. My faith has gotten me through. So then I asked a black man, 72 years old, what is the black experience? He reported, when I was a kid, we would sometimes play with a local white boy. He told us his parents told him that colored children were supposed to call white folks Mr. and Mrs., but white children could call colored folks by their first name. Even if a black man was 100 years old, they called him uncle. They would never call him Mr. Also, I served in the United States Army in Vietnam. Soldiers knew that back home people were saying, baby killers, baby killers. Most of the white guys were saying how bad they were treated when they got back to the US of A. But for us blacks, we were treated the same as when we left. So then I asked a 16-year-old female, what is the black experience? She reported, constantly being underestimated, not validated, and talked down to. The black experience is the talk. When your parents won't let you go out at night because they're afraid of what might happen to you. The talk of what to do if you get pulled over. It's constantly having a target on your back, and if you're male, 2 targets. But that's not all. The black experience is beauty, laughter, fun, strength, resilience, and courage. Black is brilliant. So then I asked a 36-year-old black male, what is the black experience? He reported, it's royalty in confusion. We don't know our identity, so we're using society's identity to describe who we are, when actually we're royalty. 14-year-old female, what is the black experience? I think that it means you have to be strong and have confidence. I also really like my hair. 60-year-old male, what is the black experience? It's just living in a white world. We are not equal. And lastly, I asked a black female, 41 years old. She had a lot to say. She said, as a mother raising black children, especially a black boy, I struggle with trying to prepare my 7-year-old for living in America wearing blackness every day. It's sad for me because my children can't always do everything their white counterparts can. To get recognition, they have to work harder, dress better, dress well, etc., etc. As a black woman, it's the same thing. I find myself watching and sugarcoating what I say, being careful how I express myself so I won't be taken as the angry black woman. Especially working with predominantly white females. In my field, white people make decisions about the cost of child care, guidelines for income, and family size curriculum, and what kind of teachers to hire with limited information on diversity. Some white teachers can't emotionally connect with kids on varying backgrounds. Then she said, and I have to tell you this. Do you know I had to write to Fisher-Price because they didn't sell the black grandparents for my daughter's dollhouse? She said they did write back to her. But she was so glad that she was able to be a voice because black people have grandparents too. But I do take pride in blackness, in the family bond, support system, spiritual journey, taking pride in my ancestors and teaching my children to make every moment count because their ancestors didn't get to see these moments. I want to make sure their legacy stands for something. So that is the reported information that I received as a researcher from black persons when asked, what is the black experience? Now I want you to notice something. I did not include a certain age group. in particular, as it relates even to students at William Peace. Now, I know that you have some adult students, but there is an age that is not represented here. We see teens, and then we go from teens to what, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. But there are no 20s. I wonder what the 20-somethings would have to say about the Black experience. There are some on this campus. Have you ever asked them before? I'm glad I asked someone. What is the Black experience? I wonder what it's like for college students. Well, if we're going to really continue to think about the Black experience, we have to start somewhere and include history. You're going to see me look down a lot at my notes because I did not want to present something that's based on my opinion. When I was working on my PhD studies, one of the things that they told us as students was, we understand that you have passion for your topic, for your research topic, but our question is, who cares? You have all these opinions and you're excited and all. Make us care. The way that you make one care is that you substantiate your claims. This is what they taught us as PhD students. And so you're going to see me look down quite a bit because I want to make sure that if I'm talking about Black people, that I respect maybe the history of Black people, at least the history in this great country called the United States of America. So where did it all begin for Black persons? What really is their history? Well, if we're going to be true about this thing and really think about the Black experience, we have to consider American history through African eyes. American history through African eyes. We would have to start with 1619. You see, 1619 is here, and then 1865 is there, and then you see 1954, and then we're going on. Now, because of the time that we have, or don't have, I'm going to have to condense some things. But I want to give us a working idea of the Black experience by including the history of these persons. The fact is, if we think about the history of these persons in the United States of America, it began, again, in 1619. In 1619, the first free Africans came to America there in Jamestown, Virginia. They were brought here on ships. They came to America and then they were put in chains. They were put in chains and their duty was forced labor. They were to labor and they were to help to produce for America lucrative crops like tobacco and cotton. And so these persons, they arrive in America. We see the American slave trade. This is their first experience on this land. Now, when we think about those persons, this is what we see. These persons arrive, are brought here to America, and they're sold. We're talking about the slave trade. This is the history. I want you to look at this poster, because these are the types of posters plastered around America. The men, Black men, were not called men, and the women were not called women, because they were property. They were nothing more than animals. And so, as you can see here in this slide, the posting read something like this. The men were called bucks, and the women were called wenches. So they found themselves on auction blocks. And as you can see, this is an example. Ladies and gentlemen, we have bucks and wenches for sale. $3, age from 20 to 26, strong and able-bodied. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a wench, Sally, age 42, she's an excellent cook. We have another wench, age 23, with a 6-month-old pig. That's a baby. We have another buck, $1 age 52 is a good kennel man, and then 17 bucks aged from 12 to 20, excellent. So these persons are brought here and they are put in chains and they're sold. Now, I didn't want to just give you just this information. I wanted to give you the lived experience. Remember, I'm a researcher. And so I went and I read some of the slave narratives, because no one can tell your story like you can. So then these people, there are a few slaves who actually wrote down what happened. So one in particular, the book is entitled Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs. And she writes about this experience of the auction block that I just told you about. Now, she wrote as Linda Brent because she wrote under an alias, and I think we all can understand why. But this is what she wrote when considering what happened, even what she saw. She said, on one of the sale days, I saw a mother lead 7 children to the auction block. She knew that some of them would be taken from her, but they took all of them. The children were sold to a slave trader, and their mother was bought by a man in her own town. Before night, her children were all far away. She begged the trader to tell her where he intended to take them. This he refused to do. How could he do that when he knew he would sell them one by one wherever he could and command the highest price? I met that mother in the street, and her wild, haggard face lives today in my mind. She wrung her hands in anguish and exclaimed, "Gone, all gone, why don't God kill me?" I had no words wherewith to comfort her. Instances of this kind are a daily, yea, an hourly occurrence. Not only does Harriet Jacobs write about the experience of the slave trade, but also Frederick Douglass. I would suggest to you, if you want to know more about the Black experience, then listen to voices who are no longer with us, but they left their voice. Because in narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave, he gives you insight into what it was like to be an American slave. So all of you are here on this evening because you are interested in the Black experience. So then I'm giving you, remember, information, not so much to understand, but to be informed. You know why? Because when you know better, you do better. So what does Frederick Douglass have to say about his experience? Because you see, I want to tell you that slaves were not permitted to learn how to read. But that's not just something that it's an oral tradition that we're just passing down. Let me tell you what Frederick Douglass said about reading. He said, "The plan which I adopted and the one by which I was most successful was that of making friends of all the little white boys whom I met in the street. As many of these as I could, I converted into teachers. With their kindly aid, I obtained from all different places and types. I finally succeeded in learning to read. When I was sent on errands, I always took my book with me, and by going one part of my errand quickly, I found time to get a lesson before return." He says, "I'm strongly tempted to give the names of 2 or 3 of those little boys as a testimonial of the gratitude and affection I bear them. But prudence forbids, not that it would injure me, but it might embarrass them. For it is almost an unpardonable offense to teach a slave to read in this Christian country. So, when thinking about the history here, 1619, well, let's keep on going to 1865. So we talked a little bit about the slave trade, and we've heard from those who have gone on, but we've heard if they were here and the question was raised, what is the black experience? They may just share those things. But by 1865, the 13th Amendment was ratified. So it officially abolished slavery in America. So then, everything I've talked about as it pertains to slavery, there are those who would say, oh, that happened so long ago. I mean, 1619 to 1865? Okay, you can just throw out that whole slavery talk business. We can, okay, well, let's talk about 1865 to 1954. Because we're trying to understand the black experience. And it's interesting, when some people say something, perhaps about the legacy of slavery in this country, there are some who do say, well, you know, that happened so long ago. And I will say to you, if you want to understand the black experience, don't you think you need to understand the history of those persons? I mean, let's say right now I asked you your experience. But I said to you, I don't want to know anything between your age 6 and age 15, because that's been so long ago. So I want to know about you, but I don't want to know about 6 to 15. What would you say to me? Would you say then, oh, that happened so long ago? You're right. You don't really need to know that about me. Who cares about me 6 to 15? Because now, this and that, and now this and that. So let's move on. Let's move on to 1865 to 1954. What did these black persons have to deal with then? So slavery is abolished. You're no longer physically in chains. Well then, black persons had to deal with black codes, Jim Crow, segregation. From 1865 to 1954, let me fill us in on a few facts. Black codes, if you've never heard of black codes were put into place to regulate and control what blacks could and could not do, even after slavery was abolished. It wanted to limit power that black persons had. So when thinking about black codes, let me give you some examples or some elements of black codes. So you're no longer in chains, yet you are restricted by black codes. These are some examples of elements of black codes. Race was defined by blood. The presence of any amount of black blood made one black. So your mom could have been white and your dad could have been black, but you're black. Your mom could have been black, your dad could have been white, you're black. Any piece of blood, okay, the presence of black blood made you black. Employment was required to all freed men. Violators faced charges. Freed men could not assemble without the presence of a white person. Freed men were not to be taught to read or write. Public facilities were segregated, and violators of these laws were subject to being whipped or branded. So slavery has been abolished, and now we have black codes. Well, by 1877, between the end of the Reconstruction in 1877 and the beginning of the Civil Rights Movement in the 1950s, we moved on to Jim Crow laws. So black codes are so much not as popular, but now there's Jim Crow that black people deal with. Well, what's Jim Crow? Well, Jim Crow deprived African Americans of social and political power by segregating schools, having white-only fountains, and forbidding interracial marriages. Jim Crow laws were there to keep the whites in power and limit African American influence. Even here in the state of North Carolina, there was something called green books. Green books were guides that African Americans had so that they would know where they could travel safely, where they could sleep safely, where they could eat safely. So these green books were really important so that African Americans would not have to worry about their safety. So this is even in the 1950s, okay? So let me give you some examples of Jim Crow laws. Prohibited marriages between whites and Negroes or Indians or persons of Negro or Indian descent to third generation. White and black children shall not be taught they should not be taught together. Seats on all buses are to be segregated by race. So segregation was the enforced separation of different racial groups. But by 1954, Brown versus Board of Education happened. And what happened is that the U.S. Supreme Court delivered its verdict ruling that racial segregation in public schools violated the 14th Amendment. So that happened by 1954. So these black persons, they dealt with slavery, 1619, 1865, and then we have black codes, Jim Crow, segregation, 1865, 1954. But even after that, let me just give you some more history. In 1955, there was a young man by the name of Emmett Till. Emmett Till was only 14 years old. He went into a grocery store and he was accused of whistling, if you will, at a white woman. Those who heard it were angry. And they didn't only lynch Emmett Till, 14-year-old boy, but they mutilated his body. And so what happened is no one was in trouble for such things, you know. And so it raised the question, do black bodies matter? What is the value of a black body? Emmett Till's mother at the funeral, they really wanted to bury him quickly. They didn't want anybody to see his body. That's how disfigured it was. But she said, no, I want you to keep the casket open because I want you to see what they did to my baby. If you haven't read about Emmett Till, read about Emmett Till so that you might be informed. 1955, same year, Rosa Parks and the Montgomery boycott when she did not give up her seat. February 1st, 1960, 4 black students in Greensboro, North Carolina, not very far from here, sat down at a lunch counter. They sat down and they ordered coffee. They were refused service because it was a white-only counter. But they stayed there. They even came back the next day. And others came with them. And it wasn't just people with black skin that came with them. Those who realized that all people matter, they showed up too. And what ended up happening was that people heard these folks' voices and it started to engage other peaceful protests against segregation in libraries, beaches, hotels, and other establishments. So these things had to happen. But still, in 1963, there was a bombing. There was a bombing in a church, a black church. There was a bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Alabama. 4 little girls dead. 1963 comes and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivers his I Have a Dream speech. This is the black experience. So then by 1964, the Civil Rights Act was signed, and it is a landmark bill that in the United States of America, labor law that outlaws discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits racial segregation in schools, employment, and public accommodations, and it prohibits unequal application of voter registration requirements. So some people would say, oh man, well we're good now. I mean, we've got the Civil Rights Act of 1964, we're good now. But isn't it interesting, when I mentioned voter registration requirements, that even in 2019, there are still some who are fighting for civil rights, human rights. Dr. King fought, but I want you to look at this picture over here. This is a modern day picture. This is one of my pastor friends. His name is William Clayton. You see Dr. King in handcuffs. He fought for civil and human rights. You see Pastor Clayton in handcuffs. He's fighting for civil and human rights. So isn't it interesting that there are those who are still fighting for the same things? So chains, they really remain. Figuratively perhaps, but do you see the chains? Maybe, again, not literal chains, but figuratively, do you see the chains? The chains of a new Jim Crow, where millions of African Americans are locked behind bars, then regulated to a permanent second-class status. Do you see the chains? The chains of you can't process your humiliation, black people, for fear of using the race card. Remember, it happened so long ago. Do you see the chains? The chains of a memory of your ancestors taken from their community, taken from their land, taken from their language, their heritage, divided, lynched, segregated, burned, and castrated. But you can't talk about it. Let's not talk about it. That's how the psychological chains remain. Such is American history. So considering all of American history, because you see, black history is American history. But when considering all of American history, and even the things that I've shared with you, what does this mean? What does make America great again mean when considering history? Well, for some people, it means psychological turmoil. A PTSD, if you will, post-traumatic stress disorder. But not just a PTSD, a PSTSD, a post-slavery traumatic stress disorder. For some, it's trauma. For others, it means make America great again. It means all of the work and the time spent trying to break free of the chains. I don't want to go back. What does it mean? Breaking the chains. It's important that if America is going to break the chains, you can't change what you don't acknowledge. The history of America, all of it, is important for all Americans to acknowledge. Even the parts that may be painful, because the history of America is as real as the last Confederate flag I saw as I rode on I-95 from Fayetteville to Johnston County. All of American history should be talked about. All of American history. If we're going to heal and if we're going to be free from the chains, we have to talk. So when thinking about the black experience, we have to ask ourselves, do we want chains Or do we want crowns? In order to remove those chains and reach for crowns, we have to elevate our minds. That's why it's good that you're here. Because you are going through an experience of mental liberation. And in order to do that, we have to do it together. Black people have found strength in a higher power, looking to God. You see, one of my research participants, she reported, the 52-year-old said that her faith has gotten her through. Faith has gotten black folks through, it seems, because there's even messages in the songs. Oh, messages like those old Negro spirituals. Negro spiritual like, sweet low, sweet chariot, come forth to carry me home. Sweet low, sweet chariot, come forth to carry me home. If you get there before I do, coming forth to carry me home. Tell all my friends I'm coming to, come forth to carry me home. Can you feel the hope in that? I looked over yonder and what did I see? Come forth to carry me home. A band of angels coming for me, coming forth to carry me home. May I find freedom on this side. Frederick Douglass said, I may be a slave all of my life. Oh, but come down, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home. You see, because Frederick Douglass also talked about how they didn't have shoes, but there were Negroes who said, I got shoes, you got shoes, all God's children got shoes. When we make it to a greater place, a God who sees us all, not as some race, black, white, but as the human race. Because if no one else understands, it is the Creator who understands that taking dust from the earth and breathing life, and then man becomes a living soul. Not a black soul, not a white soul, not an Asian soul, not some Indian, a soul. Oh, God got it right. When will we? Maybe we'll get it right because I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. I have 4 mini assignments for us to consider on this evening. You're here because you care about the black experience. How much do you know about the black experience? Let's just see. Well, music, because black experience is not just about skin color. Oh, the music. There are so many messages in the music, just as the one that I just shared with you, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. But how many of these songs might you know when considering the black experience? If you don't know one, I challenge you, write one down, take a picture of the slide, look it up. We're living in the age of YouTube. You can find the song. And listen to the message in the song. Mahalia Jackson was one. She sang a song, Soon I Will Be Done with the Troubles of This World. Because thinking about all of the parts of the civil rights movement that she saw and was a part of, I imagine one day she bowed her head and she just said, soon will be done, trouble of the world, trouble of this world, trouble of this world. Listen to the message. Soon will be done, trouble of the world, going home to live with God. Then she said, no more weeping and wailing, no more weeping and wailing, no more weeping and wailing, home no Jim Crow there. There is no segregation there. There is no racism there. Soon I'll be done with the troubles of this world. That is the black experience, even in the music. And then there were those like Marvin Gaye. If you've never heard the song, look it up. What's going on? That's the question that you raised. What's going on? Then he had another song. As he looked around at what was going on, make me want to holler. Oh, and the Temptations. Anybody know anything about the Temptations? Oh my goodness. They didn't just sing, what was the song? What's the popular Temptation song? I've got sunshine. Anybody heard that? On a cloudy day. Ooh. Oh, come on and sing it with me. You heard that. But they have another song called Ball of Confusion. You should listen to that song. Talks about that's what the world is today. It's a ball of confusion. And then Harold, Melvin, and the Blue Notes. Wake up. Wake up, everybody. They challenged everybody to wake up in their day. Wake up, everybody. And they even say for the teachers in here, they were saying it a long time ago, and we need to continue to say it, even in 2019. One of the parts of their lyrics is, wake up all the teachers, time to teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen to what you have to say. You know, as a professor, I don't want to just teach for the sake of people getting a degree. I mean, it's great. You know, I want my doctoral degree of ministry students to become doctor. I do. That's great. But I want them to listen to what I have to say. Because I bring something into the classroom. I am a vital voice. Someone wrote the book. But then I've lived some things. I've done some research. I don't want them to just get a piece of paper. I want them to get an experience so that when they go out into a diverse world, they're able to acclimate and they're able to impact that diversity that they are among. They need to be well-rounded. And sometimes me just standing there and teaching from a book with no real passion will only help them to graduate, but it won't help them to succeed in life. Don't let your students just be another piece of paper. Don't let them be just another graduate, another statistic. They're more than that. Let the experience live. So that's the first homework assignment. Retrieve the song's message of the black experience, okay? Retrieve the song's message of the black experience. Okay, maybe you don't want to do that particular assignment. Let me give you another one. So, there is a history in this country that was not really revealed until about 1996. So then, persons in America have been told that the first time that there was a bombing from air in America was the Twin Towers. So then in your mind, the only terrorist attack that you know of on U.S. soil where there was a bombing was 2001, 9/11. That's the only one you know about, because that's the only one that the powers that be that you know about. Let me introduce you to when the bombing happened the first time on U.S. soil in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It happened there in Tulsa called the Black Wall Street. Now, this was an area with 600 black businesses and institutions there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, destroyed in 1921. These businesses included churches, restaurants, supermarkets, movie theaters, schools, libraries, law offices, private airplanes, post offices, banks, hospitals, and public transportation. Don't ever let anyone tell you that black people have not had businesses before. Because even in 1921, Black Wall Street, also known as Little Africa, was the most affluent African-American community in in the 1900s, but Black Wall Street was burned to the ground and bombed from the air by groups of angry white mobs, fueled by hatred and encouraged by the Ku Klux Klan. The thriving business district consisted of one of the wealthiest all-black communities in the nation. Only one building of the original Black Wall Street survived the gruesome attack. So your homework is, answer this question. Is this bombing listed as one of the 10 worst bombings on American soil? Why or why not? Why or why not? Look up the Black Wall Street. Oh, maybe you don't want to do that question. Maybe you don't want to do that assignment. So let me give you a different one. Maybe you've heard of HBCUs. Stands for Historical Black Colleges and Universities. There are over 100 historical black colleges and universities in America. This designation is given by the U.S. Department of Education to schools established before 1964 with the intention of serving the black community. Today, HBCUs serve students of all races. These schools were established before the Civil Rights Act of 1964 with the intent of primarily serving African Americans. So, when thinking about structured higher education systems for black students, they simply weren't there. Now, the question may be raised, why do they have to have their own schools? Again, there was no system of higher education in place for black people in America. So HBCUs were a response to a problem. A problem not created by black persons, but a solution made by black persons. So since black persons could not attend other institutions, they created their own. So, your homework is, name 5 HBCUs. If you don't know 5, that's okay, that's why you're here. Remember, I talked about this is for informational purposes only. I don't really mean only. I'm hoping it'll make some changes. What did I say? When you know better, you do better. So this is for informational purposes. Can you name 5 historically black colleges or universities? That's the homework. Okay, last assignment. If you don't like any of those, I think this is the one you're going to want to do. I'm confident in it. Black-owned businesses. We're talking about the black experience, and that the black experience is not just about skin color. So I've talked about black business. Well, I'm talking about that now. But I talked about black educational institutions. I've talked about music. All of those things, right? So we're getting a combination. Let's talk about black businesses. So black-owned businesses in the United States has increased between 2007 and 2012. There were at least 2.6 million black firms. So when thinking about black businesses, they're mainly operating in healthcare, social assistance, and other services such as repair, maintenance, personal and laundry service sectors. So this is your homework. Where are the black businesses in Raleigh, North Carolina? That's where we are, right? Where are the black businesses in Raleigh, North Carolina? Be able to locate, just like 5 of those HBCUs, be able to locate at least 5 black businesses, okay? Find 5 black businesses. Now I have a question for you though. How many black businesses have you already supported? If you supported a black business, then that makes you part of the black experience. And then you must understand that being part of the black experience is being part of the human experience. Because we all have to live here together. So, the black experience at the end of the day is about the desire for equality and justice, both of them. From my research, talking and listening with these people, The black experience is about equality and justice. Now let me tell you what equality is. Equality is the fact that both of these persons get to be in the race. That's equality. That's equality. Justice, however, is put me in the race with the same position that you have. I'm not asking for an advantage. I'm not asking for a handout. I'm simply asking that some of the obstacles that are in my way, remove them so that we will indeed be all men are created equal. Don't just say all men are created equal. Let's have equal opportunities and let's do it justice. Justice is about what's right. If you and I were running in a race and I was halfway, I was on this side over here. Now the race starts here. You're at the starting point. But I'm over there. And then all of a sudden, the guy or the girl, poof, they shoot the gun. And you start running. Well, I'm running too. Perhaps I'm thinking, it's not like he's not in the race. It's not like she's not in the race. It's not like they don't have an opportunity. Justice is, let's start the race at the same time. That is what I heard from my research participants, is that the black experience is a desire for equality and justice, to recognize that I too am America. Langston Hughes, the great poet, he said it this way: I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. So we must ask ourselves, are we prepared to remove psychological chains so that everyone wears crowns, or will we all be in bondage? Dr. King said, we may have come on different ships, but we're all in the same boat. So I leave with you the reflection: what will you choose?